My family life was always pretty straightforward, nothing like what you see in the movies. I have two aunts, Aunt Clara and Aunt Sophie. They're sisters, my mom's sisters, and they've always been close. Or so I thought. They both married into respectable families, had kids, and lived what seemed like happy lives. I looked up to them. They were the picture of stability. A few months ago, I was visiting my parents for the weekend. The phone rang, and it was Aunt Clara. She sounded different, panicked. She asked if she could come over alone. Said it was urgent. Of course, I said yes. An hour later, she's sitting on my couch, looking pale, her hands trembling. She told me she had something to confess, something she couldn't tell anyone else, not even my mom. She took a deep breath and the words just tumbled out. She'd been having an affair for over a year. I was shocked, to say the least. Aunt Clara, the one who always lectured us about loyalty and commitment, it didn't make sense. She cried, telling me how she felt trapped in her marriage, how this other man made her feel alive again. She wasn't making excuses, just explaining. Then she dropped the bombshell. She needed my help. She wanted me to cover for her, to lie to my uncle if he ever got suspicious, to say she was with me at a book club or out shopping. My jaw just about hit the floor. She was asking me to be an accomplice in her secret life. I felt this cold knot in my stomach. I didn't know what to say. I mumbled something non-committal, just trying to process it all. Before I could even wrap my head around Aunt Clara's request, something even crazier happened. The very next day, my other aunt, Aunt Sophie, called me. Her voice was just as shaky as Clara's had been. She also needed to see me, urgently and alone. I thought, what is going on? Is there some kind of family emergency I don't know about? So Sophie comes over. She sits in the exact same spot on the couch where Clara had sat just 24 hours earlier, and the story she told me was almost identical. She was also having an affair. She was also feeling miserable in her marriage and had found comfort with someone else. I just stared at her, completely dumbfounded. Two sisters, both cheating on their husbands, both coming to me for help. It felt like I was in some kind of bizarre play. And then, just like Clara, Sophie asked me for the same favor. She needed me to be her alibi, to lie for her, to help her hide her secret from her husband and kids. I was speechless. I mean, what are the odds? Two aunts, two affairs, two identical requests for me to become their official liar-in-chief. It was just too much. I felt like I was being pulled in two completely opposite directions by two people I loved. As I sat there listening to Aunt Sophie, a million thoughts raced through my head. Were they coordinating this? Did they know about each other's secrets? It seemed too coincidental. But their distress felt so genuine. They both looked so broken, so desperate. It was clear they were in a lot of pain. I realized this wasn't just about them wanting to have some fun on the side. This was about years of unhappiness that had finally boiled over, but that didn't make my position any easier. I was their niece, not their confidant in deception. Then, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place, and it was a piece I never could have predicted. While Sophie was still there, crying and pleading with me, she mentioned the name of the man she was seeing. She said it was a silly crush at first, a guy from her gym, a personal trainer named Mark. The moment she said the name Mark, my blood ran cold. Because that was the same name Aunt Clara had mentioned. The same name. The same profession. It couldn't be a coincidence. My heart started pounding. I asked Sophie for a few more details about this Mark, trying to sound casual. His age, where he lived, anything. And every detail she gave me matched perfectly with what Clara had told me. They were both having an affair with the same man. My two aunts, two sisters, were being played by the same guy. And they had no idea. They had both come to me, their niece, to help them carry on their secret relationships, completely oblivious that they were entangled in the same web of lies, spun by the same person. I just sat there frozen. I couldn't tell Sophie. Seeing her so vulnerable, I just couldn't bring myself to shatter her world even more right then and there. But I couldn't tell Clara either. What was I supposed to do? Tell one and not the other? Tell them both at the same time and watch the explosion? The weight of this secret felt crushing. I was caught in the middle of a disaster that wasn't even mine. If I told them the truth, it would destroy their relationship as sisters, probably forever. They would be heartbroken and humiliated. If I kept quiet and agreed to be their alibi, I'd be helping this guy, Mark, manipulate and deceive them both. I'd be enabling a situation that was bound to blow up in the most catastrophic way possible. And what about my uncles? And my cousins? This lie would eventually unravel, and the fallout would be devastating for the entire family. I felt so alone. I couldn't talk to my mom about it. She's their sister. It would break her heart. I couldn't talk to my friends. It felt like too much of a betrayal of my aunt's trust, even if they had put me in this impossible position. For days, I just went through the motions, their desperate pleas echoing in my head. Every time my phone rang, I flinched, expecting it to be one of them, asking if I had made a decision. I felt sick with anxiety. This wasn't just a family secret. It was a ticking time bomb, and I was the one holding it. Finally, I knew I couldn't be a part of the lie. I couldn't live with myself if I helped deceive my family. But I also couldn't just drop this bomb on them without any warning. So I decided on a different approach. It was risky, but it was the only thing I could think of that felt remotely right. I called Aunt Clara, and I called Aunt Sophie, separately. I told each of them the same thing. I can't be your alibi. But I think we need to talk, all three of us. Can you please come over on Saturday? They were both hesitant, suspicious. They asked why, what it was about. I just said, please, just trust me on this. It's important. That Saturday was the most tense day of my life. I sat them down in my living room, one on each end of the couch. The air was thick with unspoken questions. They looked at each other, confused. I took a deep breath and just laid it all out. I told them that they had both come to me, that they had both told me their secrets. I watched their faces go from confusion to shock to embarrassment. Then I told them about Mark. I said the name and watched as the realization dawned on both of them. It was horrible. It was like watching two people get hit by a bus in slow motion. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard. There were tears, then anger, then just this profound, heartbreaking sadness. It was an absolute mess. They screamed at each other, at me for telling them, and then they just broke down completely. But in the middle of all that chaos, something shifted. The anger they had for each other started to turn towards the man who had manipulated them both. They started talking, really talking, for the first time in what was probably years. They shared their stories, their pain, their loneliness in their marriages. It was raw and it was ugly, but it was honest. They weren't just two women who had been cheated on by the same man. They were sisters, rediscovering a bond they had lost. The aftermath is still unfolding. Both of their marriages are in turmoil, and I don't know what will happen. But they are facing it together. They are going to therapy, both individually and as sisters. They cut off all contact with Mark, of course. They told me that as painful as that day was, it was also a wake-up call. It forced them to confront the truth, not just about their affairs, but about their lives. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and at times I questioned if I did the right thing. But seeing them support each other now, I think I did. I chose honesty over deception, and in the end, it was the truth that started to set them free. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have a story of your own, I'd be interested to hear it in the comments. And please subscribe for more real-life stories.